Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. Right, today we are back again with another top 10 class video. Now I was planning to release this video yesterday, but yesterday was a quite busy day for the videos, so I just delayed it for a day. Now we should be back on course, and now as promised we are talking about tech class. Unfortunately, tech class in my opinion is overall the second weakest class in the game, and they have pretty much a single champion to thank for not being the weakest class in the game, or close to that, anyways. And it also coincides with tech being one of my personal weakest classes. Now we can see that this is my top of the top tech roster, and there's only like 4 rank 3 6-star champions and a handful of rank 5 5-star champions, and that is about it. And I can go to literally any other class, especially let's say mutant, where I have significantly, if not even double, the number of champions at corresponding ranks. So that alone was a quite good indicator that tech class is lacking into something. And that being said, there are still plenty of perfectly fine and good champions that ultimately do have a drawback or two. Like Iron Man Finty, is a champion I like and is extremely versatile and is capable of some monster damage, but is just quite frankly too slow. Too slow for any fight that doesn't involve millions and millions of health pools, and if you are going to go up against millions and millions of health pools, most of the time you will be relying on a bit different kit regardless. Then we have Nebula, who is a very, well, favored champion of mine. I like to use her for a lot of cheesing stuff and things like that, and perhaps in future I might want to take her to rank 3 because I do find her quite enjoyable and underrated, but she's just a bit too squishy for mainstream use and not quite as straightforward to play with as many of us would like. And then we have Howard the Duck, who is newly buffed and could potentially make his way somewhere in top, where is that duck? Top 10, but I haven't seen him yet do anything quite as valuable for people. I know that a lot of people do like him, but it's not like that buff made him absolutely insane. I do like him a lot better though. I do think it was a solid buff, just not quite something that should be in the top of the class. And yeah, then we have War Machine, whose impact I cannot yet judge. War Machine, by the looks of it, is also going to suffer from the Iron Man syndrome, Iron Man Infinity War syndrome, where it just takes too darn long to get into groove, going for the max damage output. And the pre-fights, well, we're going to have to observe them very closely. Therefore, as of right now, I am not putting War Machine in my top 10. But moving on to a champion that I did place in my top 10, I will put Punisher 2099. Now, his value reform came and gone and has largely went under the radar, but he is in fact a pretty much completely different champion now. There are a lot of hidden things that he can or cannot do, and I personally do value the champion even higher than the 10th spot, but I want him to prove himself. I have made the leap of faith of taking the champion up to rank 3 because I clearly do see quite a lot of ability in this guy, and it is one of the more busted things that anybody can do in this game, and that is prevent opponents from gaining power pretty much throughout the entire fight. And he can do that very, very, very well. On top of that, obviously, he can hit plenty hard once you enter overdrive, and then he has regen, power lock, heal block, and a whole bunch of other things, stun lock even. But in order for me to place this guy any higher than I do right now in spot number 10, I definitely will need to play around with him more, try and use him in some sort of off-season alliance wars in some serious settings, and just overall observe him and give him the chance that I think he deserves. But with that, I have placed him in spot number 10, perhaps over the Duck. I know a lot of people would maybe have swapped that out, but this is where we're at. Moving on to spot number 9. Spot number 9, I am going to put another champion that I personally like and can easily see get higher and higher as time goes by. But it is another champion that has been released this year, and it has hardly wowed anyone away. Now, I haven't heard many people hating on Silver Sentinel very hard, but at the same time, I haven't really seen much of this guy. Now, I know supporter of the channel who has taken him to rank 3 and absolutely loves him by the name of XLR8. He also has his own YouTube channel, so if you want to check out some rank 3 6-star Silver Centurion play, head over to his channel, you'll find it there. And in general, I do like his kit. I do like his abilities, but again, he has yet to do anything meaningful. So, pending on what champions are released, pending on what nodes Kabam decide to popularize, and pending what pieces of content are coming into the game, his value will either stay relatively similar to where it is, or it's gonna go up. But as of right now, I'm placing Silver Centurion in 8th spot because he's definitely capable of plenty of interesting things and alternate ways of dealing damage and accessing a ton of passives and basically bypassing immunities to a degree. And there is a lot there in that kit that I do like. It's just I want to see more of it before I can put him above champions that definitely have already proven themselves. And speaking of champions that have somewhat proven themselves, we're gonna go up and take a look at the fishbowl himself. We're gonna take a look at the 6-star fishbowl, but it is fishbowl nonetheless. So Mysterio is another champion that is not necessarily my personal choice for a lot of problems, but I can't deny the fact that he seems to be able to counter a lot of things. Even right now, when it comes to dealing with Grandmaster's Gauntlet, he is definitely capable of taking several of the fights there by his poison immunity, by his access to passive heal block that he's able to maintain throughout the entire fight, and, well, several different things, so that immunity to ability accuracy reduction for one. And he's a champion that unfortunately utilizes the most disliked damage delivery method that I personally have, and that is to hide most of his damage behind level 3. Now, he has very good base stats, which is a thing that many people don't realize, and he's capable of doing relatively okay damage, but it still would come out as a bit subpar unless you go for those level 3s, which is what I do not like about the champion. Also, I do not like about the champion that you kind of have very high alternative cost when you choose which route you want to go in the fight. For instance, if you want to activate your poison debuff, your heal blocking ability is going to suffer because you're going to consume your gas, and your heal blocks are going to be shorter and nowhere near as effective, and it's kind of hard to alternate in between them effectively. There are innate problems with Mysterio, but he definitely represents a fair amount of value to anybody who does put the catalysts in this guy. Once again, he might not be the quickest or the best option for every single thing, but there are glimpses of brilliance in that champion design, with its immunity to ability accuracy reduction, with that heal block being passive, with access to poison, which lets you exploit poison vulnerability lanes, with minimal amounts of power control, so on and so forth. So Mysterio is champion number 8 right now. And champion number 7 is going to be another champion that tech class has and is relatively hard to value right now. And that is Ultron. Now, Ultron is freshly gotten his buff, and we don't really not yet know what impact on tech class he has. I do know for a fact that once, long time ago, he was at the top of the class and was the king of Alliance Quest map 6 and map 5 pretty much. Because of his double immunities and his regeneration, that is a very solid base core kit for any champion to start off from. But his downfall was always the damage. Now he has a lot better damage. The only complaint I have is that this vision synergy is so important for his damage in plenty of fights. And it's a vision synergy. It is with Hulkbuster, fair play, but still, relying on synergy for that big portion of your damage is not something that I absolutely like. Also, his regeneration seems to be iffy. Let's go with iffy for now. But overall, a champion that is somewhat poison and shock resistant. A champion that has regeneration, incinerate and shock resistant. Champion that has poison and bleed immunity. Has access to damage over time, debuffs, and plenty of damage. I think he does have quite a lot of potential. The armor up ability as well, and slight power control on level 3. I have seen a lot of love being given to this guy, and I definitely do expect to see him more here and there. And as a relatively decent kind of like standard Alliance Quest option, perhaps, is something that I can very easily see him be there. But Alliance Quest has been down since he has been buffed as well, so I don't have any concrete proof of that. However, this is where I would put him, and I expect him to land, at the very least for now. I think it's a fairly conservative spot, but I do have quite high hopes for this champ to return to the limelight of fellow summoners. On a side note, I do not think he necessarily has to be duped, because I think his signature ability is relatively not needed for the champion. Just FYI if you're planning on ranking up your 6-star. Right, that being said, let's move on a bit higher, and that will be Guardian. Now, one of the bigger issues with Guardian is obviously his reliance on signature ability, and also Kabam did Guardian dirty with the way his signature ability scales. The last 20 signature stones do more for him than the previous 100. So it's a very weird and annoying signature ability arc to be had for a champion. In general, I must say I'm somewhat disappointed with the Guardian. I expected more from him. I thought I'm going to see Guardians played more frequently, and I kind of thought he's going to be better than he is. Now, overall, one of the biggest issues with Guardian, once again, is that damage loop. Whereas people typically use champions that can get the fights done quick and has access to reliable, fast damage. With Guardian, the problem is that in a lot of pieces of content, you never get to see what he's capable of doing, because the fights are more often over than not, and then you just don't feel inclined to use Guardian. Even for Alliance Quest with me, I have brought him in Alliance Quest as a rank 5 5-star in a high prestige place, and I get to my level 1, I drop that level 1, and by the time I build up to level 2, the fight's nearly done. Now that inherently is not a bad thing, obviously, you have finished the fight, but the fact that you slugged through the fight without being able to see the best this guy has to offer, however, is because champion's popularity and perceived prowess is often dependent on the impression you have with the champion, and his power gain mechanic, I think, is a bit too finicky, a bit too hard to use for majority of the people. Therefore, by that, he's too slow. If there's any given fight where you can parry opponent's special attacks reliably, and you are confident by doing so, you can get him going quite quickly. But those fights for majority of the people will come quite far in between. However, on the bright side, I still can't deny Guardian with a couple points in Coagulate is pretty much bleed immune and heals from the willpower. He's super energy resistant, which is also always convenient and handy against any energy type of damage. And then he cannot crit. He has access to shock. He's one of the best options for the new tech node. That's also quite interesting there. But overall, I have seen him here or there, but not as much as I would have liked. I really was hoping for Guardian to land somewhere higher and overtake plenty of other champions, but being a champion that demands Sig 200, you have to be very confident that you're going to get your investment back. And I'll be honest, like when it comes to talking to my alliance mates or other endgame players, from the people that have this guy at a rank 3 200 in competitive setting, vast majority of them are not overly impressed. Nobody says that he's awful or bad. Nobody is blown away quite either. Nonetheless, still a very good champion. Right, let's move on to the top 5, and I'm going to try to jump through top 5 quicker. Spot number 5 is Sentinel. Now, Sentinel is a champion that I don't like to like. Sentinel is a champion that I don't love to play. Let's start with that. Sentinel feels clunky, and there is not a single fight where I think to myself, oh, I wish I had Sentinel in this. This looks so fun with Sentinel. No, Sentinel is not a fun, exciting champion. His ramp up is quite annoying, even if you have him awakened, and if you don't have him awakened, it's just borderline, I don't know, unbearable. However, at the same time, Sentinel is a champion that puts in work, and there is no way around it. Access to heal block, armor break, shock, incinerate, heal, superb tankiness, double immunities, resistant to power control. It's just so much in it. On top of it, he's obviously tech and extra large, is helpful for variants, and he's one of the top variant champions because he happens to be extra large, he happens to be tech, he happens to be a villain, and he happens to put in work. When I was using rank 5 5-stars in Act 6, he managed to squeeze in every single chapter, and that was just plenty for him to do. And even now in 7.1 and 7.2, he has had his use without doubt. Still one of the best champions for variants, and it's very hard to deny the fact that he just puts in work. He's not a champion that's glamorous. He's not a champion that's going to drop, I don't know, like Guardian, like a behemoth of a level 2. Level 2 will be perfectly solid, perfectly adequate. It will do the damage, but it won't blow you away. But at the same time, quite I don't know, modest and quite quietly, he just keeps chucking away, and he gets the finds done. So I do believe that Sentinel is one of the best rank ups for mid-tier players, for newer players, and even for endgame players. Like, Sentinel is in a serious consideration to be one of my next deck rank 3 champions. Why? Because he's just that good. And he's helpful. Not the fun, not the biggest, I don't know, amount of enjoyment I have ever taken out of a champion, but very good nonetheless. Spot number 4 goes to Hulkbuster. Now, Hulkbuster is a champion that has had spotty ups and downs. Now, when he initially got released, people thought he's a dud. Then they discovered that level 2 spam heavy attack like a day or two later, and people thought he's an amazing and awesome. Then people ranked him up and realized that not every champion it can be used against. For instance, like a Labyrinth of Legends Red Hulk can still smack you after level 2 if you do try to immediately go into heavy attack. That is the thing. A lot of people think using Hulkbuster it's inconsistent, and it entirely depends on having the perfect timing and stuff like that. It's actually not as much so. It's just the fact that pending animations against some champions, you cannot do that heavy spam after level 2, which is still fine, which is something you learn as you go along, and that is not only, well, in regards of Hulkbuster. Like, Tiger is a perfect example of a champion where you have to control spacing. So if you stop thinking of Hulkbuster as a champion that's just going to go for level 2 border and destroy the opponent, and you start thinking of Hulkbuster for what he is, a champion that is sensitive to your spacings because of the short reach of the heavy attack, but at the same time, a champion that does so much work and just fits so many needed aspects of game, Hulkbuster becomes a stud. He is once again a great champion for a lot of variants. He was one of the variant 7 MVPs for me personally. Then on top of that, he was one of the more used champions for 7.2. I did find plenty of use for 7.1 as well. He is a solid Alliance War defender. He is a solid Alliance Quest champion, and he can also be used in Alliance War attack. Now, there are many aspects that make him work, starting from the fact that he's suicide friendly by taking less poison and bleed damage for each armor up that's active on him, by access to power control, guaranteed stun, tons of damage, and ability accuracy reduction on opponents per armor up stock. And he's again one of those champions that just fits where he needs to fit and puts in work. And I could not have been happier with how much he has helped me in the content overall. If initially I was having my doubts and I largely ranked him because I knew my alliance needed 1 for defense, but there was a reason why I jumped through that rank up, and that reason was because I liked him a lot. He's one of the more fun champions in tech class, without a doubt. Things that I say about Sentinel, you can just flip and reverse. He's good and he's fun. Therefore, when it comes, for me personally, picking in between ranking up Sentinel and Hulkbuster, I just went with Hulkbuster because, hey, I'd rather play a champion that puts a smile on my face instead of making me pout. That being said, yeah, I do think Hulkbuster deserves that 4th spot. Eventually, may or may not go higher. I don't think he will go much higher than where he is, because I think he's kind of like at his wit's end based on the kit that he has, but you never know. Still, absolutely love Hulkbuster. Now, let's move on. Spot number 3, and that goes to Guillotine 2099. Now, I have said a ton of things about Guillotine 2099, and I must make it absolutely clear once again, she's not a champion for me. I don't like playing Guillotine 2099, and I will never use her unless she's going to be de facto the best option for a fight. The reason for that is fairly simple. I hate that finish with a level 3 mentality. I absolutely hate it. It's something that's always in the back of my mind. It ruins the entire fight experience, where I need to know when I, quote-unquote, have to stop throwing special attacks, for example, just so I make it to level 3 in time. And then added on top of that, there is a stress of not losing your combo. And I know you have safeguards for that, but nonetheless, it just all feels like you're building a house of cards, and one error is going to make it all fall apart. Not to mention that there are plenty of fights where you cannot bank your combo because you're going up against something like, I don't know, random Gwenpool, and you forgot that she can't die from special attacks, or it's always harder to do in, I don't know, safeguard or rage fights and things like that. So I understand how good she is. Don't get me wrong. She is a very, very good champion. One of the better balanced champions in this game, because for all of her downsides, there are upsides. She has power control. She has access to damage over time effects via degeneration, which is quite rare. She has heal reverse. She never crits. She can deal a ton of damage. And she can, yeah, what else? Regen, power control. I already mentioned those things. She has double immunities. And yeah, there's a ton in there, and she is a good champion. And when I have to, I do play her because she can be the best option for X amount of scenarios. But at the same time, if I have an alternative choice, for me personally, this is a me kind of issue. I'm putting her in top 3 spot out of respect for what she is and what she can do, not because I like her. I would want her to be in top 3 position. But she's good. She's good without doubt. It's just not for me. Not really. Right, that being said, let's move on to spot number 1 and 2. And like, this duo has not changed for quite a while. Spot number 2 currently is Warlock. Warlock's fantastic. Warlock still has a ton of relevance in Alliance War. He's one of the most used Alliance War attackers, because even in Protect era now, he's an extra large champion, so he bypasses that a lot. Anybody who plays Willpower gets immediately punished with Warlock. And then on top of that, even outside of Alliance War, he's a champion that I quite frequently even use for Alliance Quest, because he's a robot, he's double immune, he's fairly sustainable, decent damage, and most importantly, for that specific use, he bypasses the reverse controls. Then on top of that, he has been one of the MVPs in all of the variants, once again as extra large champion that's tech and just happens to fit a lot of requirements for multiple different variants and the problem nodes in them. Then going on further, he is one of the most used champions in Act 6 and Act 7, without a doubt. There's a ton of scenarios where you end up using this guy, whether for his bleed, whether for his armor break, whether for his access to shock, power control, or what have you. He just puts in work. Incrementally, when he came out, he was not looked at as an overly exciting champion because he didn't do anything crazy. He's one of those champions that I spoke of not too long ago, like Venom, where his kit is adequate, but it's not really blowing away. He's not hitting 500k special attacks. He's not doing everything in the game, but it turns out he does, because somehow he fits. He has power control, he has heal block passive, which is one of the best passive heal blocks in the game. Again, proof enough is in Grandmaster's Gauntlet. Plenty of nodes that would prevent robots from being used can still be bypassed by this guy, because his infection mechanic cannot be reduced by ability accuracy reduction nodes. Then he has access to degen, he has access to shock as damage over time effects, and bleed. He can be used for bleed vulnerability nodes. He just does the things that need to be done. Last time I was making these rank up videos, I was quite close to saying that he might even, at that point in the game, be overtaking Ghost, but Ghost has recently been reminding every single one of us why she is the queen of tech class and arguably the best champion in the game that is currently available as a 6-star champion. Spot number 1 obviously is Ghost, because who else it's gonna go to? Ghost is one of the MVPs for Grandmaster's Gauntlet. Tons of people bringing her in. Why? Because she's that good. Ghost is one of the MVPs for Legends runs in 7.2 and 7.1. Why? Because she shreds through everything quicker. She has gotten a few indirect boosts now in form of War Machine that can protect her from armor breaks. She has gotten an indirect boost in form of Odin that can give her several extra buffs that actually help her even further with damage output. And in general, she, despite how many Cosmic Champions with Armor Breaks Kabam releases, still finds her ways to be useful and is by far one of the biggest threats in every single game mode. her ability to find openings at any given moment, why her phase mechanic is insane. Her ability to convert damage over time effects into furies is one of the most powerful abilities in the game in terms of raw damage potential, especially now when you can see it shine against energy adoption, all of the nodes, where she just gets insane damage numbers. And in general, Ghost is Ghost. There's not much to argue. And Ghost is pretty much... Ghost and Warlock are, I think, two champions that pretty much make tech class save face. Because without those two, tech class would be... Tech class would be worse off than skill class was a while ago, I think. Anyways, that is currently about it. This video went a bit over than I hoped to. I had a bit slower start, but we're going to try and get through quicker the next class, which is going to be Mystic class. So stay tuned for that one, and I am going to catch you guys soon. See ya. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information